In this episode of the Rugged Homestead, I'm going to show you how to replace rusted out radiator pipes. A couple of years ago, I had posted a video on how to temporarily patch a radiator pipe. It was in this pipe right here. It had developed pinholes in it, and I showed you a quick and cheap way of quickly stopping the leaks and giving yourself some extra time to repair the pipe. I ended up replacing the pipe, and it's definitely a do-it-yourself job. You don't need to get a plumber in here to do this. You can do it yourself. At the time of that last video, I had mentioned that I had patched up this section a couple of times. This was like a couple of years old already. So at the end of the last heating season, like in March, April, it had sprung a new leak. I decided it's time to replace it, not to mention that it's almost completely rusted through. Black pipe, like I put up there, isn't the best solution. Black pipe will end up rusting out eventually. It'll probably end up looking like this sometime in the future. But by that time, I'll be dead and rotting in the grave before I have to worry about it. So this pipe and the pipe that had been there was probably in there for 20, 30, 40 years before it finally started springing leaks. So I figure this will at least last 20 years or so before the next homeowner has to start worrying about it. I had planned on initially replacing it with copper pipe, but I didn't feel like mortgaging my house and selling off my kids to pay for the price of copper at the time. So I went with the black pipe. That's what I'm going to do here. And I'm going to show you how to do it and give you some tricks and tips on saving yourself some headaches in fixing this. When you're building out a system, a radiator system initially, things are a heck of a lot easier because you're screwing in the pipes and adding them on as you go along. Having to come back in and fit into the middle of a section is a lot more difficult because you can't be turning pipes the way you could before when you were building out the system. So you're going to need your black pipe like this and one special piece called a union. And what this does, this union, it's threaded on both ends, so you can screw it into one end and then twist. I can't show you because I'm doing it with one hand. Yeah, so then you can turn and thread it onto the other pipe. It allows you to two fixed ends, it allows you to join a pipe in the middle. But before we get ahead of ourselves with that, we got to remove this pipe. That's not so easy as it sounds. For one, 20, 30, 40 years of rust has built up on this thing, and getting it to unscrew from the fittings is damn near impossible. When I did this pipe, I used PB Blaster, I used WD-40, I used every kind of lubricant and penetrating oil that I could find to get the pipe out of the joint. It didn't come. What you're going to need to do, and you know what, it's just simpler to do right from the get-go, is to use your Sawzall. I'm going to show you that. What I'll do is I'll cut the pipe right about here, and then at the other joint down here, I'm going to cut it here. And then we can move on from there. I mean, you could try, if your pipe isn't as badly rusted as mine and you want to take it out, you could probably cut it down to about here and then try to unscrew it and use those penetrating oils. For me, with the experience that I had with the other pipe, I'm just cutting it, and then I'm actually going to use the Sawzall to cut it out of the joint. One other thing I have to keep in mind, as you can see, this has been held in place with a chain. So if I just cut this off, this whole section of return pipe here will end up falling down. So I got to make sure that I'm not taking it off where it's going to collapse the whole system and possibly break it down at the other end. So I just have to be mindful of that. These are held in with straps up here that are nailed into the floor joists. So they're not going to go anywhere. They'll hold up this section once it's cut. I just have to make sure this side remains intact. I have a new demo blade in my Sawzall. It's the Diablo brand. They're not sponsoring the video, but I've used their blades before. I had to actually dismantle a oil storage tank that used to be in our basement here before I converted over to gas. And the Diablo blades just cut through it like butter. And it was pretty thick steel. So I'm going to use it to go through the pipe here, and hopefully it'll go through just as easily. Depending on when you're doing your demo here, you might want to drain your pipes. These pipes have been sitting for like 6 months, so I'm not worried about there being water in the pipe, but I guess we'll see once I cut through. It should have probably already drained back to the furnace because it has been under pressure for that amount of time. You might get water leaking out if they are filled with things, so you might want to drain your furnace before you start cutting into your pipes. That was easy, but I also figure out that I probably cut the wrong end first. I probably should have cut this end here. Now this is going to vibrate like hell. Let me just bring it over, and you can see in there how rusted that is in there. So what I'm going to do now is actually cut this pipe. I'm going to stick the blade into the pipe. I'm going to cut down through, but you got to be real careful because this, of course, has the threads inside. So you don't want to go and mar up those threads. You want to cut just through the pipe enough that you'll be able to pull this out. That's the trick to really get this out, because, like I said, I had it cut down like this, and then trying to unstick this from all the rusting gunk over the years, it just didn't go no matter what I applied to it. So as I said, now I'm going to take the Sawzall and cut into the pipe. That looks like it should be through. I'm going to turn around. I'm going to do it on the other side too. Hopefully it'll work just as easy. So now you can kind of pry this up, bend it up into the joint there, and you'll be able to eventually work it out. Now, the last time I actually had a cold chisel that I used, but I can't find it. I cleaned up my garage and I put it away. So I'm not quite sure where the hell it is right now. So I've got these little pry bars that I'm going to try and use, and hopefully they'll do the trick. You can see that it's deformed here, but whether that'll be enough to get it out, I'm not sure just yet. And there you go. Hopefully you'll be able to see this. Too close. But it's got all this gunk that's built up in there. So I'll be using the penetrating oils and a wire brush and cleaning all that out. So don't be afraid to use a little muscle when you're clearing out these pipes here. This side actually took me a little bit longer to get it out. Again, because this is all kind of loose, just hanging here. But it took me a little bit longer to get this one out, and some banging on the pipe and bending it and whatever to finally force it out of the hole. This one, as you saw, just popped out when I hit it with the hammer. And so now what I'm going to do, I've actually shot some PB Blaster into the hole, and I've been letting it sit there. And so now I have this little wire brush. I'm going to go in there and I'm going to start clearing out the whole, the threads on both sides. Once you have your threads cleaned out, you're going to want to put some pipe dope on your pieces. What I'm using is a nipple here, and I'm going to put the pipe dope around this end of it, screw it into the looser end, I'll call it, of the pipe that's connected to the copper end that slides around, and I'll slide it and I'll tighten it down, and then I'll put more pipe dope around the other end and also around one end of this union, and I'll be able to screw it in, and then I'll be able to tighten it down into the pipe using the flat ends on the union and a pipe wrench. And now I'm just going to thread it in, and I'll finger tighten it down as far as I can get it. All right. So now with the nipple in here, I'm going to take the union, I'm going to put it on this end, put pipe dope around here, pipe dope on its threads, and then tighten the whole unit down. Okay, I have the union on, and now I'm taking a pipe wrench, and as you can see, it's turning the nipple too, and it's tightening it down into that elbow. Now, of course, the good thing about these unions is, say, once I get my other pipe into here and I've screwed it up somehow, I can easily undo the union, take out my pipe, get a new fitting, put the pipe back in, put the union on, and attach everything again. So the union, they're actually a little expensive. They're like 35 bucks just for the union. And so it's probably the most expensive part you'll get. And but it's a lifesaver. Now, this end will tighten down onto the piece of the threaded end here. So I'll end up screwing it in here and then sliding this over the other threaded end of the pipe. And that way it joins the whole thing together, but it allows you to separate it if you need to. Just to show you what I mean, this is the union that I had to install. This whole pipe was just too big for the entire, for one single pipe. So I had to get two pipes, and I joined them together with the union. So now if this pipe goes or this pipe goes, I can unscrew one end or the other and be able to remove the pipe, no problem. So with the union attached, now I have to measure from here over to here. And then I'm going to add about a ½ inch to either side to allow for the amount that's got to be screwed into the pipe here. And I'll go to the Home Depot and I'll get another piece of pipe. Now, as I had said, when I got this pipe, I had to buy two pieces, and so I have some leftover pipe. Home Depot allows you to bring in that pipe that you've got. They'll cut it down and thread the end of it for you at no charge once you've bought the pipe. So now all I have to do is just measure up this, take the pipe to Home Depot, and they'll cut it and thread it for me. I had the pipe cut and threaded at the Home Depot, 14 inches long. I put pipe dope on inside the fitting as well as on the threaded part of the pipe. And now I'm just taking my pipe wrench and I'm going to tighten it down. Get a really good seal in there. And now this is what I was talking about. I'll put pipe dope on here and inside, and then I can take this and then line it up and then tighten it up. when you're doing it, this side of the pipe, the threaded side, turns in the opposite direction. So I was doing it ass backwards. And so where this one is going down this way, the opposite side of the union turns the other way, this way. So now I'm just threading it down. And as I noted, because they do turn in opposite directions and independently of one another, I can screw down this side without loosening the other side. And the last thing we have here is the big nut on top that you screw down, and it locks it all into place. So that's tight. So everything is now locked in. So we got the new joint there. We got it, the joint into the thread here, that's tight. This has been locked down onto here, so neither side will move. And then we've got this side locked into the nipple, into this joint. So the only other thing to do now is to spark up the furnace and see if we got any leaks. And again, if we do have leaks and there's a problem with either this fitting or with this fitting down here, we could always easily undo it. We loosen this up, loosen up either end, whatever we need to do to remove the pipe, and then we can replace the fittings if necessary. It's going to take a little while for the heat to come up, for the furnace to fire up for the first time, but I'll come back and show you if there's any leaks or not. So it's been running for about 10 minutes now, and so far, no leaks. You can see over here, I guess some residual from the grease, which has bubbled out a little bit there. Looks like it's going to be okay. We'll have heat again for the winter. So that's it. It's a DIY project. You don't need to have a plumber come in, HVAC person come in. You can do it yourself. Takes a little muscle maybe to get some of those rusted pieces apart, but it's completely doable. Just need a few special tools and a few special parts like the union, pipe wrenches to tighten everything down. But other than that, it's DIY. And it's a permanent fix for the pinholes. So if you want to get a temporary solution to your to a leak that you might have with a pinhole leak, use the patch that I showed in the other video, and I'll have linked it above previously. Now I'll link it up again. And when you're ready for a permanent fix, this is what you do. Okay, thanks for watching.